Hello, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm taking a long time to make these videos, but I'm going to make up for it. We're going to have this week and next week going to be 2 videos per week. So that's going to be fun. And the other reason I'll say it took so long is because, look at this. Do you see how long this took to build? This German Tower O Games. It's fallen over like 8 times, too, while filming this intro. But I think it's worth it. Because, of course, it's Germany month, Germany June, or more June, and I love Germany, love the German language. I think half because, as I've said before,
Over my Nachname Deutsch ist, kann sprechen Sie Deutsch.
that's right, my actual last name means purer, according to Google Translate, but the other half of the reason I love the German language is because where else can you find words that have like 800 letters in them? You know, really only the German language. The game we're going to cover today is, interestingly, actually a Japanese reprint of the original German game. And it's, I can't read this title, but it's Volltreffer, and it's by Gunther Burkhardt. And the hook to this game, kind of a few hooks, and I know it's not technically unique to this game, but it's the first time we've covered this on this channel. Players will be drafting their hand by paying points to get better or maybe even trump cards into their hand. And then the other hook is players aren't trying to get the most points. Most points doesn't win. You're trying to hit a band of points. So you're trying to end the round in like the 60s. And if you overshoot and go 70s or higher, or undershoot and are 50s or lower, you actually won't win. It's a really interesting kind of narrow band that players are aiming for. Let's go to the table and I'll kind of explain these concepts better. The deck in Volltreffer is the same no matter the player count. 5 suits, numbered 1 through 10. Here we have the setup. So we have the score mat, where the cards are going to go, the deck of cards, and then each player's kind of score pawn. These pawns will go onto the respective spot. So 3 and 4 goes on 25, and 5 goes on 30. And then we'll flip over the top card of the shuffled deck, and that will be the trump suit, so black. Then we're going to set up the market. And how the market works is it's supposed to be the most valuable card that is going to be the most expensive. So the highest of trump is going to the right, then the highest of any other off trump suit. So as you draw here, you have this 2, and that would probably go to the 0 spot. And then you have the 5, and you see how these are all like off suit, and then the 8, and then we got a trump at the end here. So this will be the initial market for the starting player. The first one to go to the market first is the youngest player. Let's say it's the Mind Thief here. And so what they do is they get to buy one of the cards from the market according to the price here, and they're going to spend it with their points. So if they really wanted this trump card here, they would spend 4 points. But maybe at the start here, they don't really care, so they're just going to take this 2 and not lose any points. So this goes into their hand, and then the next card is coming out, and you would just slide this and make room for it. So then the next player drafts, maybe it's the Inix, and they want this 8. So they are black, and they're going to lose a point and take this 8 into their hand. And then the next card's going to come out. For ties like this, like those 5s or those 8s, then it would go to the next player. And maybe they really want this 7 trump, so they'll take it and they'll lose 4 points. Then again, you would refill, and so this slides there. And it would be the Mind Thief's turn to take a card, and you would just keep doing this until everyone has 8 cards. After the buying phase, then we'll go into the melding phase. And starting with the youngest, they will show different valid melds. And I'll put a table up for the things they could show, but essentially it's triples, quadruples, or quintuples. So in their hand here, they actually only have 3 3s. So they would show the 3 3s and they would get the points for it. So 3 3s are worth 5 points. They go up to 21 here. And then they would show a different meld where they have all the colors. So the 5 different suits here. Then they would get 5 more points. Then you also get points for having the lowest total in your hand. So you would kind of count this out. So like 9 plus 8 plus 10 plus 9 plus 5. You count that all up and you would compare to your player on your left, and everyone would go around and see who has the lowest. If you have the lowest, you would get 5 more points, and you'd be the start player in the trick portion of the round. So after everyone's melded, then we get into the final phase, the trick phase. And so let's say it was the Mind Thief who had the lowest hand, and then they'll lead to the trick. So this is a must-follow game. So maybe they play this 10 yellow. Everyone, if they do have yellow, has to play it. Inix would just play their only yellow, that 8 there. And then finally, the Antler would play maybe this 4. And so if you win a trick, you will collect the trick and you'll get 5 points for every trick you won. So maybe they are bouncing up to 34. Then they'll lead to the next trick, and maybe they play that blue. If someone's off suit, they can always play any card they want, so maybe they do play this trump there to try to win this trick. And of course, it's highest played of the lead suit, unless there's a trump, then it's highest played of trump. So Inix will win that 5. I think they're black. I don't remember. But they'll win that 5 points. And then you'll finish out all 8 tricks. Players will move up on this ranking here. And then how it works is at the end of the 8 tricks, so there's the 3 phases, there's the buy cards, the melds, and then the trick phase. At the end of a round, so at the end of a trick phase, if anyone's in this purple tier here, then you will trigger the end of the game and you see whoever's closest to 66 if there's multiple people in that tier. So let's say that at the very end of a trick phase, it was like this. Blue, since they're only one in the tier, would win the game. If it was like this, black would win because they're closest to 66. If it's like this, where they're equidistant, or like this, then it's a tie and both players win. And that is Volltreffer, which I think is bullseye in German, but I really, really like this game. There's a lot of interesting elements that kind of build to a centering scoring mechanism. So you have the crafting of your deck, or your hand, like kind of like Vashtik or Nikosu dice, where you are drafting, you have a lot of agency over it, but the fact that you're taking penalty, like point penalty hits, makes it so every card you take does have some weight to it. A lot of times players will just take that 0, the cheapest card. But then that also informs the melds, you know. So if you're trying to go for 3 or 4 or 5 of a certain card, you'll definitely take that point hit. You know, like if you have 2 of those 8s and then the third 8's up at the 2 slot or even at the 4 slot, sometimes you'll take it because you'll be able to make that meld. And I think it's really interesting how those 2 phases really inform the third phase as well, because you're trying to hit this 60 through 70 bar, and sometimes you'll take a really high up trump. A lot of times if it's like the 10 or the 9, you'll totally take that for 4 points because winning a trick with it will give you 5. So it's kind of a funny situation where every piece of the game, like every phase of the game, definitely informs other phases of the game. And what's cool sometimes is some players will even take, in that drafting, more expensive cards because they might be a little too high up in the in that rank, and they don't want to overshoot the 61 to 70. So what's cool is sometimes players will craft their hands in interesting ways during the drafting to set themselves up really well for the melding and the trick play to hit that sweet spot of 66. And speaking about that sweet spot of 66, it's a funny that the component is a mouse pad. I always just get flashbacks of AOL and those weird internet discs and mouses with the physical ball inside of them whenever I see a mouse pad. And it's tough because sometimes the chunky little meeples will slide all over the place because this doesn't quite lay flat. But it's nice. I think there's some nice love that went into this production. The funny thing about the art, which I don't mind, it's definitely a little silly, is I've noticed it's all kind of zoomed out. Like they could have zoomed in on pretty much like all of these little characters here. But they are pretty goofy. I think the theme kind of fits because you're going into a dungeon, kind of like Clank-ish. But overall, I think it's fun to look at, especially maybe compared to the 1999 version, which has kind of like a Punch-Out vibe. I'll show some of the pictures there, which are a little goofier. They have some charm to it, but maybe not as well produced as this version. I have played games before where you're showing off part of your hands like as melds to get points. You know, like in this game, it's the 3s or the 4s or 5s of a certain value to try to get the points. And what's interesting about the other games where I've played of that is sometimes you're showing your hand to your opponent or your opponents to get points, but you're revealing a little bit of your hand. So like in Schnapsen, you show you have a marriage, and then you'll actually only play one of those cards so that your opponent knows a little bit about your hand. But what's funny in this one is since you're drafting open, then when you show for your melds, it's really, you're not losing any information. Because if people are tracking it really well, they already know you had those, those 3 sevens. Since it is only 8 cards per player, it's a pretty trackable game. One of the really, really clever touches is one of the melds is you get 5 points if you get 1 card of each suit. And what's really important for that is then you know that everyone's in suit at least once. So if you just keep track of who melds that, then you'll know some of your guarantee tricks that you might play, like a 10 of any color, won't get trumped. So there's some really cool moments and really cool interplay between the melds and keeping track and then the trick phase of this game. They all, like I said earlier, kind of just really inform each other and kind of work in interesting ways with each other. I love that you don't see who's closest to 66 midway or at the end of certain rounds. It's at the very end of the trick phase. Because some people can really set themselves up to overshoot the 66 by like a lot. I love how the points are broken up in this game. So when you show off melds, they're in multiples of 5. And when you win tricks, it's always 5 points each. But when you draft cards, it's 0, 1, 2, or 4. So it's really cool how, especially because this board's broken up into multiples of 10, so that's really quick and easy to kind of just move up the board when you win a trick. But it's cool how the drafting will set people apart, and it almost feels like this is a lot of the times the tie break, because in the games I've played, when players are getting close to this this band at the bottom here, which I love this part as well, players will often be, they'll be at like 62, and then another player will be at 61. And it's funny how like the draft, just that 1, 2, or 0, 1, has made it to where if this person wins a trick, they'll overshoot it. Whereas if this person wins a trick, they'll hit that 66 exactly. So that is Volltreffer, and I really, really like this game. I think I have a habit on this channel to cover a lot of the newer games. I enjoy kind of new twists and fun stuff, but it's always nice to look a little bit back. And I know the trick-taking genre goes, hundreds and hundreds of years back. I've definitely been shown some great older games by like Sean Ross. Shouts out to Sean Ross. But it's cool to look back not too long ago, 20, 22 years, and still find really, really fun things. I've played a game, or some games that kind of borrow from these elements, like Pirate Tricks. It's one of the newer ones. If this was hard to get a hold of, definitely check out Pirate Tricks. But you can... what I love about trick-taking is you can always look kind of anywhere in time and just find a really cool twist on the genre still. So definitely check this out. I love the idea that there's so many disparate elements, but they all come together in some really interesting ways. And yeah, thanks so much for watching.